everybody, and welcome to another end of year video, another best of feature, the best of 2023. Now normally I do a little preamble before the video starts, and I'm going to try to keep this one short because like the previous years, this is another video where I haven't pre-scripted it, I haven't done a lot of high production value stuff to it. The past couple years, particularly last year, the reason for that was just because, you know, head empty. Head was completely empty. It was just, yeah, a lot of stresses, a lot of just like not good feelings. And this year it's almost the opposite. It's I haven't been able to have the mental capacity to make a nicely produced, fully written feature, not because my head is empty, but because my head is full of a lot of different feelings, and most of them are net positive. Yes, sure, there's still some of those negative stresses that were part of last year, but they're also now counterbalanced with a lot of new happinesses and a lot of new experiences, and yes, a bit of new anxieties and new worries as well, but that's kind of the point. So they're all different levels of feelings mixing together as opposed to just one constant negative feeling. And that got me thinking a lot about, you know, other things that make me feel like generally net positive. And one thing that kept coming back was actually my trip to Japan, which I have a lot of footage of and I never did anything with. So I thought, since I don't really have the brain space to like come up with a very specific thing for this best of feature this year, why don't I just use that footage from Japan and integrate that somehow into the structure of this. You know, talking about my favorite things of the year, using footage from my favorite trip I've ever taken to maybe my favorite place in the world. And that just seemed very fitting. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. So we won't be talking too in depth about the winners in these categories, because again, I don't really have the brain space for it. We'll just say a couple lines and move on, but hopefully it still gives you an idea of why I liked the things I liked this year. So welcome to the best of 2023 feature, talking about my favorite things of the year through the lens of looking at things in the past that bring us joy and using those good feelings to carry us forward into the future. Let's get started. So let's start off like we usually do with the best games of 2023. Now, 2023 in gaming was weird because a lot of fantastic games came out, a lot of amazing games. So it was really good on that sense, but on the human side, absolutely terrible. So many people losing their jobs, a lot of like consolidation of companies. It is not a great time to be in this industry, and just talking about how great the games are doesn't feel right without mentioning the human cost of all this. I really try to keep things positive in these end of year videos, but it's really hard to put that whole aspect of the industry aside because it's been rough. But you know, the least I can do is you know, celebrate the art those people made, the art that those people worked so many years of their lives for, even if the corporations that are so hell-bent on destroying those lives will not, you know. So yeah, let's go into it. Let's talk about our favorite games of the year, starting with my favorite old game of 2023. And that is Metroid Prime Remastered. So yes, Metroid Prime Remastered did come out this year, but it's a remaster of the original Metroid Prime without any new content or stuff. It's a big graphical overhaul. It's a lot of new textures and stuff like that, but no new missions or features besides, you know, dual stick control. So I'm gonna consider it for best old game. That said, it's still an incredible game. I love the Metroid Prime series. The Metroid Prime series is or was my introduction to Metroid in general, and I really love those games. So it was really nice to go back to Metroid Prime 1, which I haven't played since I think the Wii release, the trilogy release. That's maybe the first time and last time I played Metroid Prime 1. And yeah, it was great to go back. That game still rocks, even you know however long it's been since that original release on the GameCube. And I really hope they put out Prime 2 Echoes and Prime 3 Corruption on the Switch soon, because I am now in the mood to play through all of those. So now on to the top three. First up, number 3, it's Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name. Like a Dragon Gaiden or Yakuza Gaiden, whatever you want to call it, it is the side story that involves Kiryu, and it tells us what he was been up to in between Yakuza 6, 7, and what is going to be 8 coming out. Yeah, it's not a story I think they needed to tell, but I am sure glad they told it because, well, you know what? Before I even get to the story, let's talk a little bit mechanically. I think it's a really fun take on the brawler style of the Yakuza games. They give Kiryu a lot of interesting abilities that make just mowing down folks just super easy. There's that, specifically the little spider attack where he throws out a bunch of whips and kind of pulls them in or swings them around. That is really fun to use. It was actually my favorite tool. It's the first tool you get, but it's still my favorite tool throughout the entire game. The gadgets really add like a really fun aspect to it that I think they can use some of those ideas and mix it into whatever the next Judgment brawler game is going to be. As for the story, again, it's not one I thought needed to be told, and for like the first maybe chapter or two, it's interesting seeing how it develops and what is the main conceit. They get Kiryu to like kind of like hop around Osaka and stuff like that. But what really sold this for me was the final couple chapters where they really hammer in the thing that the Yakuza team had been so good at lately about putting like a really strong emotional anchor into their stories. I did not expect them to go so hard for a side game, but this is actually the first time a Yakuza game has had me straight up sobbing at the end scene or a scene near the end. It was such a heartfelt moment. I'm not going to spoil it obviously, but it was such a heartfelt moment that I think just to see that resolution, playing the game is worth it just for that. And also not a very long game. It's only about 5 chapters long. Yeah, the Yakuza team, the Like a Dragon team, they're just on the top of their game lately in regards to really making stories that not only hook you because of all the twists and turns and narrative beats, but just because of also the character development and the emotional weight that gets put on them. And Gaiden is maybe one of the strongest resolutions to a small scale story that I've seen from them in a while. So next up, our number 2, and that is Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I am not really a 2D Mario person. I much prefer and am better at the 3D Mario games because those are the games I really spent the most time with. I did play the 2D ones when I was younger, but obviously not on their original platforms because I didn't own those original platforms. I played them either at friend's house or when the ports that came to GBA. I dabbled in the new Super Mario Bros. Series as well, the ones on the Wii and the Wii U, and I wasn't really a big fan of those. So I just thought, 2D Mario wasn't for me. And they announced this new 2D Mario and I was like, oh, this looks really cool, but I don't know if I'm gonna play it. And the closer we got to the release date and the more videos I saw and the more people talking about it I saw, I was like, oh, this game seems a lot more interesting than I thought it was. And then friends started playing it and then I started seeing clips and I was like, uh-oh, I think they might have made a 2D Mario game for me. So I decided to jump the gun and just pick it up and decided to give it a shot. And oh my god, it's genuinely some of the most fun I've had with a video game all year. It is such a delight. That game is such a delight. The controls and the 2D platforming just feel really tight in a way that I felt like New Super Mario Bros. Never was. The levels themselves are so inventive, so fun. The Wonder Seeds switch things up in really interesting ways, and they're almost all different. There's only a couple repeats. It's crazy how much stuff they put into that game, and also the multiplayer, and specifically the online multiplayer. I didn't play the co-op multiplayer, like the couch co-op multiplayer, because I don't really have anyone in person to play with. But the online multiplayer, both with randos and with your own friends, genuinely so much fun. It is my favorite way to play that game. I had a group of friends that we were all playing at the same time. We'd always just hop on and do levels together, seeing their ghosts run around and either help us to point us to directions or just kind of goof around and kind of and confuse us because they're all jumping all over the place. It's a form of chaos that is a lot more manageable than the chaos of multiplayer and 3D world, but just as fun. I'm not one to replay things very often, but I had no issue going back to other levels because other friends were at different points of the game. Some people were first, some people were more behind. Whenever someone wanted to play, we'd just hop on. If it meant they were behind us, we'd play those levels. And I played a bunch of those levels multiple times over now at this point. Never got tired of it. It's a ton of fun. Mario Wonder is wonderful. Ha ha. Anyway, enough with the puns, the bad puns. Let's talk about my favorite game of the year. It's another Switch game. There's a lot of Switch games on this list this year. The Switch had a good year, I guess. But number 1, of course, it's Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild was my number 3 the year it came out, and that's only because that year was crazy. That year had Nier, and that year had Persona 5, so those games went out over Breath of the Wild. But this year we can put Zelda at the top of the list because Tears of the Kingdom not only gave me the feeling of playing Breath of the Wild again, but it gave me so much more. I put, I think, about 140, 150 hours into Breath of the Wild when I first finished it. I more than doubled that in Tears of the Kingdom. I did like 370 something or 360 something hours in Tears of the Kingdom. Here's my map of like where I traveled throughout the game. I did not leave a single stone unturned. I went to every nook and cranny on that goddamn map. What Tears of the Kingdom did so well for me was let me re-experience the Hyrule that Breath of the Wild created, but in a way like when you would go back to a place you loved so much and to see how it's changed over that time. Before the game came out, I thought, I really wonder how they're going to make this experience feel so novel again, because we've been in this world before, but they fucking nailed it. I was going to places that I've definitely been to before and seeing not only new things, but also having that feeling of not quite nostalgia, but of that familiarity of going, oh, this is that place where this secret cave is, or this is that place where this landmark is. And just like having a feeling of knowing the landscape, but also seeing so many new things, just so much fun. And of course, the big thing, of course, is like, the building aspect. That entire system is crazy. I don't know how they pulled that off. I know a bunch of game devs were also saying the same thing on Twitter and other social media sites, just going crazy of how well crafted that building system is. I'm not so much the Minecraft type of person where it's like so open, you can build whatever you want. I'm more the kind that I like to build whatever I want to solve a specific problem. And that's what Tears of the Kingdom does so well. Like, yes, you still can build whatever you want and have fun, but I really enjoyed going into a shrine or being somewhere in the overworld and needing to get somewhere and just having to use what's around me or what I have saved to build something to solve this specific problem. So yeah, Tears of the Kingdom, incredible video game, and I can't believe I spent so much time playing that game. That was my entire like spring, basically. Yeah, what a game, what a game. So next up, the music category. I'm gonna be honest here. I almost cut this category this year because I love music. I still love music. I still listen to music all the time. But lately, again, I just similar to last year, I haven't listened to a lot of new records coming out. I just mostly I've listened to new music, but not new full records. I'll just put like the new releases playlist on or my super mix on, and new things come to me through that way. So really quick, here are the three kind of the only 3 new albums I listened to this year. In no particular order. They were the first 2 pages of Frankenstein by The National, Laugh Track by The National, and Taylor Swift's 1989. Laugh Track and First 2 Pages of Frankenstein are kind of like 2 sister albums, or double album if you want to call it that. They both came out this year. I think I prefer Laugh Track over First 2 Pages, but I like them both a lot. And they're great national albums. The 1989 Taylor's version it's 1989 again, and 1989 I think is a banger album, 5 stars. I love that album so much. I think the re-recordings lose a little bit of something. I do like the original version of the album more, and I think that just has to do with, like, you can't really recapture lightning in a bottle. Those initial recordings are what they are, and you can't necessarily recreate that energy or some specific sound. So some of the mixing is different too, like on vocals and some backing track stuff here and there, but it's still at its core 1989, and 1989 is an incredible album. So yeah, great albums. Similar to last year, I'm thinking I'm just gonna do like a little single shout-outs section of a couple specific songs that I really liked within the year. So let's just roll on with that. So maybe one of my favorite songs of the year was Space Invader by The National. This is off Laugh Track. It's a longer song, about 7 minutes long, and it's almost 2 songs in one, because the first half is this very national, like contemplative alt rock. Then the second half of the song is just this low droning, almost mumble from Matt, like growling into a microphone. 4:15 in the morning, my heart's software gore. Why'd I leave it like that? Why'd I leave it like that? While guitar and drums slowly start picking up louder and louder in the background. Keeping with the National, there's also a New Order t-shirt, which is on First Two Pages of Frankenstein, maybe my favorite song off that album.
I keep what I can of you. Split-second glimpses and snapshots and sounds. You in my New Order t-shirt.
I keep what I can of you, split-second glimpses and snapshots and sounds. It's, you know, a song about memories, a song about little moments that you remember and you hold fondly, and you use that. You use those good feelings to fuel you. Of course, if we're going to talk Taylor Swift, we got to talk about Clean. Clean is maybe my favorite Taylor Swift song ever, maybe her best song ever. Again, there's a few production changes in it. Imogen Heap's vocals are mixed a little differently, but those are such minor things. Like I'm really nitpicking here. I was like listening to, cause I, you know, I listen to them on headphones, I can hear the differences. That doesn't make it a worse song or a bad song. It's still clean, and it's still my favorite Taylor Swift song ever. So another album I listened to this year was the live album from the 1975. It's called At Their Very Best. It's taken from their Madison Square Garden show that they streamed live and then got put out earlier this year. Specifically, I want to call out the 3-song sequence of Falling For You, I Need America, and About You. The sequencing of songs, or the set list, from Falling For You into I Need America into About You is like my favorite 3-song sequence on that album. They just flow so well into each other. Let's go into the anime corner for a bit. Since I watch a lot of anime, I get exposed to a lot of anime OPs. There's Hitomi Naka by Tei, which is the opening for the 2nd season of Tsurune. We have Red Birthmark, which is the 2nd ending to Gundam Witch Season 2. And of course, then we have Slash, which is the opening for the 2nd season. Then we have Mellow, which is the opening for Skip and Loafer. And then Shiawase, which is the opening to Horimiya Peace. And now to cap off the single shoutout section is a song that technically doesn't exist. Like, it's never been released, not yet at least. A Wave by Coldplay. This is a song you can only hear if you go to one of their concerts, because it's the song that plays at the end of the concert. After they're walking out and taking their bows, this song is playing while the credits are rolling and everyone's walking out of the stadium. It's the reason the song's on here is because later in the year it kind of like reappeared in my playlists or whatever. And also this song was actually the song that was playing as the year turned over from 2023 to 2024. Like, this song was playing in my headphones. It kind of actually inspired the vibe for this entire feature. Back when I was still kind of solidifying the nuggets of ideas of what I was going to do, this song definitely helped kind of bring all those things together. And yeah, so that's music. I kind of feel bad about giving the music segment the short end of the stick, you know, lately, but that's just how things have turned out. So it's not that the music isn't important to me. It's just that my way of listening to music has changed. So, but we'll see. Well, that might spring back this year. Who knows? Anyway, let's move on to the next category. It's time to talk about movies. I always tell myself I'm gonna watch more movies more often throughout the year, as opposed to piling all of them into like a 1-month span near the end of the year to catch up. I tell myself that at the beginning of every year, and every year I don't do that. I ended up watching like maybe 1 or 2 movies per month, and if that, and then watched like a movie every day in December. But that led to me watching a lot of movies, more movies than I played video games even. So let's talk about them. Starting off with the best old movie of 2023. My favorite not 2023 movie that I watched in 2023 was Close. Close is about a pair of friends, young boys, that are very, very close. A kind of platonic love that is really hard to come by nowadays, I feel. One that really only exists when you're a kid and when you're so innocent. But of course, kids are brutal. So once they go into school and they're so very obviously close in front of everyone else, rumors start spreading, and this causes one of the kids to start reassessing his friendship with the other boy. And they don't necessarily drift apart, but he starts being more abrasive and tries to put some distance between them. And it's just a great story about how they deal with that and the unfortunate outcomes that situation causes. And calling it unfortunate is putting it very lightly. There are some very heavy and very dire problems that get caused because of this shift in the way he treats his friend. But yeah, it's just a very lovely movie, and really showcases that, you know, love comes in all forms. It's not necessarily all romantic. You can be extremely close with someone platonically like that, or alternatively, maybe it is romantic, and that's okay too. And you're not sure of it in the moment because you're too young, or you just never thought of it that way. But like, that's also a read too, and navigating the differences in those kinds of emotions is difficult for anyone, let alone a child. And I just think the movie does a really great job at presenting that. But from there, we're moving on to our number 3, which is a very huge shift in tone. My number 3 favorite movie of the year is Bottoms. Bottoms is such a funny comedy, and it's the kind of humor that's directly aimed at me. Quick throwaway jokes here and there, some jokes in the background, awkward line reads and awkward interactions between people. It's just so funny. Ayo Debris, which you may know from The Bear, and Rachel Sena are just so good at delivering the kinds of lines they have to deliver in this movie. I later learned that they've been working together for a long time, and they've done a lot of this comedy stuff before. Like, you can watch this by yourself and have a great time, but this is definitely elevated even more if you watch it with a friend or a group of friends. Either way, watch this movie. So much fun, so much fun. So on to my number 2, which is a movie I caught near the end of the year, but resonated with me so much. It's The Holdovers. So a little backstory, the way I was watching these movies, because there were so many movies that I had like decision paralysis, I would just put them all on a wheel, spin the wheel, and whatever landed on that day is what I would watch. I spun the wheel on Christmas Eve, and it landed on The Holdovers as if the universe knew, because The Holdovers is a Christmas movie. I didn't know it was a Christmas movie. I didn't know much at all about The Holdovers, except that Paul Giamatti was in it. Paul Giamatti's performance in it is fantastic. He plays just this asshole of a teacher, but he does so well to like really embody those things that you would hate in a teacher, but still make him personable and relatable. You know, you can see the good in this guy as well. And of course the student, whose name escapes me right now. This is his first time acting in any major role, and he knocks it out of the goddamn park. Also, the movie is like 7 different movies. I could not believe that the movie was still going on at various points when I was watching it. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that like, oh, this movie's too long, this movie's runtime is crazy. It's just that they packed so much into their runtime, and it all feels necessary. It doesn't feel like extraneous bloat. You're just on this journey from the moment you hit play, and it takes you to so many different places. And again, no spoilers. I never do spoilers in these best of videos, but I do want to mention the end just hit me. The end hit me really hard. If you have a really good relationship with a former teacher, or had a very formative experience with a teacher, that last scene will hit home for a lot of people. It sure did for me. Wonderful, wonderful scene. But now on to my first favorite movie of the year, the movie of the year, whatever you want to call it. And that's Past Lives. So I don't actually know how to talk about this movie. Similar to how I didn't know how to talk about Aftersun last year. I'm just gonna tell you to go watch Past Lives. It's a movie about examining your past, confronting it in the present, and seeing how you move forward with that outcome. And it's not necessarily about, you know, this idea of what could have been. So many movies of this kind feel like they focus on that, and this isn't that. This is more about what is what is. You are just on the path you're on, the path you chose, the path life took you on, and you just gotta keep moving forward. And sometimes when you look back, instead of thinking of what could have been, you just learn something about yourself that reaffirms the path you're on. I loved that movie so much. The interactions between the 2 main characters, something I want to point out specifically as something that I really, really liked. They felt so genuine. You know, just seeing those 2 characters interact, you know, as kids, and then, you know, as young adults over Skype, and all those conversations they had, and those moments they shared. Anytime they were interacting, I had a genuine smile on my face, because it felt like I was watching 2 real people sharing a genuine moment, and those feelings came across. So huge props to the director and the actors for fucking pulling that off, because my god. But yeah, I loved that movie so much. I didn't know what I was getting into when I hit play on that movie, and it had me fucked up the next day, straight up. Just like, I'm not gonna even beat around the bush on that one. I was thinking about that movie for the entirety of the time I finished it and the day after, and I was just like laid out, laid out for a whole day, just like, wow. Loved it, absolutely loved it. Favorite movie of the year, for sure. Okay, here we go. The final category of this video, best anime of 2023. Let's just get right into it. My favorite old anime that I watched this year, My Love Story. There's a story behind this one. A friend of mine, who is one of the friends who probably the most recommends me stuff to watch and or read. And they're like, Petey, you need to read this one. You're gonna love it. You need to read this one. You need to read this one. And then I saw, oh, there's an anime of it. And you know me, I gotta watch the anime before I read it. But I promised them that I would read the manga before the year's end, but I just had to watch the anime first. All those things happened. I watched the anime, and then around November, December, I started reading and finished the manga. So talking about this as my favorite anime is gonna be a little difficult just because a lot of things that were in the manga that weren't in the anime are pretty fresh in my mind, and they're kind of like just like intrinsically tied together now because I watched and read them so close together. I tend to not read something until long time after I watched the anime, but it's still my favorite old anime that I watched. I love these characters, especially Suna. Suna's like the best friend anyone could ever have, and I think the manga makes this even more clear than the anime does. It's very sweet. Like it's like there's not a lot of like tension or drama, and what tension there is tends to be solved fairly quickly. But sometimes it's just nice to have a show like that. And that's not to say that everything's perfect in My Love Story. You know, like there are moments that definitely made me die in this series. Takeo and Yamato have their issues that they end up having to work out and having to confront. It just so happens that they do those things pretty much right as they happen. It's just sweet, and I really liked seeing it all unfold. Anyway, moving on to our top 3 of the year. Let's get started with our number 3. My number 3 is Gundam: The Witch from Mercury Season 2. Really, it's kind of like the entire series, but specifically Season 2 because Season 2 is what aired this year. But now that the series is over, my God, what a fantastic show. First of all, this is like my first Gundam series. This is my first like official seen from beginning to end Gundam series. I've watched a little bit of Gundam Seed in the past, a little bit of G Gundam in the past, but this is the first one I sat down and I watched the entire thing, and it hooked me so much. Like I now am a Gundam freak in terms of just like the actual model kits. I bought so many model kits. So that's just like one aspect of what Gwitch did to me, but like, you know, it does what people tell me the Gundams do. Like, you know, it's a commentary on war and the human cost of that, and then one episode in particular in Season 2 just fucking destroyed me. Just fucking destroyed. Like I literally had to pause the scene, and I just stood there watching with my mouth agape and just tears. I really wish I could say something more substantial, but again, not a really thought out feature this year, so we're just gonna go with that. Look, I mean, my phone, like, I made my phone literally the aerial. Yeah, so, Gundam Witch, my number 3. But moving on to my number 2, that's Skip and Loafer. This is another show that same friend who I mentioned before has urged me to watch/read, and they, as they often are, were right. For the longest time, I actually thought Skip and Loafer might have been my favorite thing I saw this year, and we'll get to what that is soon, but it just barely makes it to number 2. This is just another one of those shows with just like impeccable character work, also impeccable vibes. Like a running theme in some of the shows I watched this year is that I wanted to create a category just called impeccable vibes and like list like 4 shows there. This is one of those shows. It's just so feel good, but also does so much work to endear you to the characters, even the characters that seem to be causing problems, the problems clowns, if you will. But by the end of all, you're rooting for pretty much all of them and hoping they all solve their individual issues and everything they have going on. And you know, one thing that's nice about Skip and Loafer is like, well, look, I like a romance anime. That's not a secret to anybody. But this isn't really a romance. Like, there's definitely a chemistry between Skip and Loafer. That's not their names. That's just what I call them. Their names are Mitsumi and Shima-kun. And there's definitely a chemistry between them. You're definitely like looking at this and going, at some point they're gonna end up together, or at some point one's gonna realize that they have feelings for the other. But that's not necessarily the thing everything hinges on. Just their normal friendship interactions are also so lovely and feel so real. It's just a really nice way to frame a friendship. like maybe there's something budding there, but maybe there isn't. And maybe they just have a very mutual respect and admiration for one another because they fill in pieces that the other doesn't have, right? One is good at one thing that the other is bad at and vice versa. I really love Skip and Loafer. I've just started buying the books. I've just started buying the books and they're on my shelf and I haven't read them yet, haven't kept them open yet. And my friend will kill me for not doing that because in my head I'm going, I gotta wait till the series ends because I want to read it all and take it in holistically. And yeah, so I love that show a lot. I love it a lot. And like I said, it was almost my number one. But I think after thinking a bit, a different show rose to the top. Let's talk about that show now. Insomniacs After School. This is the show that even started the conversation in my head about naming something like Impeccable Vibes of 2023 because this show is like peak impeccable vibes. So well directed, the pacing and the music choices and just the way everything builds up to every individual moment in every episode is done so well. And the show starts off very simply, right? It's just, you know, two students who are both insomniacs. They bond over that, try to make a club together so they can actually sleep because since they can't sleep at night, they want to like maybe try to find a quiet spot so they can sleep during the day. Their shared experience helps them comfort each other and helps them all both get to sleep. And then it gradually turns into an astrophotography show, but not leaving that important aspect behind. It just adds on to it. And hey, if you're gonna make a romance show about insomniacs and photography, you might as well just be writing Go Fuck Yourself, PD. The show is another one of those that's just like aimed directly at me. It was definitely one that I loved immediately after finishing it, but the more it sat with me and the more I just kept thinking about it. Like just like over the course of the year after I saw it, like every now and then I would just think about it. Thought about specific scenes or how the two main characters deal with their developing feelings and how they deal with comforting each other through their insomnia and how safe they feel with each other. That's what was like really lovely. Just like seeing two characters feel so at home with each other despite them only recently having made a connection. That was just depicted in a very lovely way and a very realistic way, I think. Absolutely loved it. So that's it. That's our best of 2023 feature. Like I said at the beginning, there's been a pattern lately of me, instead of making a really nicely, highly produced, scripted best of feature like I used to, with a lot of like editorial thought behind it, kind of just sitting in front of a camera and spouting nonsense into a microphone. But that's just all, that's all that I have been able to do with what's happening up here. But again, what's happening up here, for the most part, at least this year, this is later half of the year, is again, net positive, mostly good. It's weird because I don't remember a lot about the beginning of the year. And that's strange because this technically was supposed to be like a fairly big year. Like, you know, I turned 30 this year, for example, which to me, it's not that big of a deal. Another year, I feel very, very normal about it. It's like, yeah, I'm 30 now. I'm not having a crisis. Not because of my age, at least. But a lot of things that happened this year in the beginning, the first half of the year, I don't really recall a lot of major things. But the later half of the year, that started becoming, as opposed to this just like long flat line, just like a bunch of like peaks and valleys, a lot of good and still some bad and still again some moments of terrible anxiety and some moments of just like really feeling low, but a lot of highs, a lot of like new experiences, a lot of meeting new people and seeing old friends and reconnecting and I'd much rather have that. So yeah, that's it. I think that's the end of the video. I've rambled on enough about my favorite things and also about myself. Thanks for watching, everybody. And you know, like I said at the beginning of the video and like the whole framing device of this whole thing, you know, remember those things that made you feel good, hold on to them and use them to like make a path forward. I know that's what I'll be doing, and maybe I'll get to go to some of those places that made me feel so good again very soon. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Speaking a language without a name. One day we'll see each other again. each other again. Speaking a language without a name. One day we'll see each other again. Each other again. Till